everybody. Welcome to the Harbor.Church podcast. I am joined today by John Petty III.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Not to be confused with number 2 or number 4.
There's so many of them.
At this point. A lot of John Pettys out in the world.
amount.
This is the third one. If you don't know him, he is the worship director here at Harbor.Church. Helps run both of our bands at both of our locations, get the people inclined toward God musically, and has been a part of Harbor since pretty much day one.
Long time.
Very, very early on. Yeah, which is cool. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Happy podcast day.
Love to do it.
Yeah. So we have a super light topic this week, which is
super
nice.
easy. Yeah. Nice and fun.
If you missed the message, if anyone listening missed the message, we're still in mind games. The game this week was basically a maze of stanchions. Turns out a lot of people don't know that word.
You got to get involved in this game.
I did get to get involved. It was a little different.
Which is fun for you.
Basically, they had to make it as hard as possible for me to get through that little maze. They could use anything they wanted in the room, and I had to carry luggage through. Yeah, varying levels of success. Some overthinking went on. We don't have to name names, but one person put basically nothing at all in the way to block me and just stressed out the whole time, and then found out there were 10 seconds left and threw some chairs.
Good job, Derek.
Yep. But yeah, our friend Jake built like a French Revolution era barricade.
Unbelievable.
Straight out of Les Mis is what I was thinking, yes. But the point of the message overall was essentially our contestants were representing Satan, which is the tough take.
Which I don't think they volunteered for.
Not what they signed up for at all, but such is life. You know, they signed that disclaimer. What can you do?
Yeah. You might be depicted as
you
Satan.
may or may not be depicted as Satan. We can't promise.
Yeah.
But the idea that he's putting obstacles in our paths all the time.
Yeah.
As we're trying to walk with God. And then the other unfortunate thing is I was representing God, which couldn't be a worse representation. However, it worked for the illustration and the idea that he's unfazed by anything that Satan is doing.
Yeah.
Getting into this topic, I kind of wanted to, for the sake of our listeners, and just to be honest, myself, and I want to hear your take on it because we grew up in very religiously different households, I would say.
Yeah.
So you might feel really differently about this topic than I did and still do at times. But I distinctly remember, I was like a junior in high school when I came to know Jesus and kind of found that for myself. My parents, I was raised Catholic, whatever, but an actual relationship with Jesus was not something that had ever even occurred to me until that stage in life. And that piece of it, I started with the Bible. Eventually I got there. I could get behind that there was a God that created the world. I could get behind the fact that I've got issues. That was fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
That was never much of a question. There were some hard to believe things that I didn't struggle to believe.
Sure. Yeah.
Satan as a concept truly took me a while.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, because all I had was cultural influence, which is like pitchfork guy with horns.
Yeah, right.
And it seemed ridiculous. And I think for a lot of people, it does still. And like it took me a while to get to a point where it didn't seem insane to me. Even after I had like really started following God, I was like, do I even have to deal with this Satan thing? Because I'd rather just not think about it.
100%.
And go about my business.
Yeah, it's easier to ignore it than it is to really put a face to it. And I think that is why Pastor Josh kind of touched on that. But I think that's why I think it's one of the things that Satan does really well, is that he convinces us that there is this caricature of Satan with the horns and it's fiery and the whole thing, and then that's not actually a real reality of my life. But the Bible is teaching, like, this is actually the reality.
Right.
Like, you think the reality is what's in front of your face, but actually Satan is working behind the scenes in order to get after your soul. Which is like super heavy. Yeah. But it's much different than that caricature of the,
It is, yeah. And I think it's I would much rather talk about last week's topic of money, truly. Than Satan with like the average person, because I think there's just there's a silliness to it. Like, what are you even talking about? That is kind of an initial barrier a lot of us have to overcome. I wonder, is that different for you because you grew up in a house where maybe it was more accepted or not? I don't know.
I think that my father, at some point in his early Christian walk, my father got saved right before he had kids. I'm the third of 4, so he was down the road a little bit by the time I came along. But I think somewhere along that line, he read a book about spiritual warfare that like totally changed his life. My father, if you know him, is not exactly like, I wouldn't call him a very like ethereal person. He's very practical.
Yeah.
He's very straightforward, stoic. That's kind of who he is. But in our home, specifically when it talks about in the Bible, like, hey, our battle is not against flesh and blood, but our battle is against powers and principalities of this heavenly realm, like dark forces in an evil world, like this whole idea. My father made it very clear to us that like what you think is your battle is like you and your sibling, and what I'm telling you is your battle is sin, and your battle is Satan coming against you in order to get your soul. I think that it was definitely more normalized, but I would say that my feeling about talking about it is probably pretty similar. I think that in general, this topic of Satan, the topic of like any level of demonic force, is something that can be uncomfortable to talk about with people that are not spiritually minded, with people that have never been to church. It's like a weird sort of thing to talk about, and it actually feels like highly offensive. And so like, I don't want to tell you that like Satan's after you, because you're like, yeah, all right, you're kind of being weird about this.
Feels
Like
aggressive.
I don't feel demonically like oppressed. I, watch The Exorcist. That's not me. Like my head only rotates what it rotates. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Happy for you.
Thank you. But I do think there's a part of it that when I don't want to have that conversation, I think that that's more about me than it is about like me actually caring about that person. I think if I actually cared about that person, or if I cared in general about the spiritual health of the people around me, I would make sure that that's obvious. Satan's trick is that he gets us to focus right in front of our face.
Yeah.
And then all of my problems are right here. And the problem with my problems being right here is that like I feel like I can control them.
Right.
But all of a sudden now, if my problems are really, let's say, in the heavenly realms, they're things that are coming against me in order to get my soul. I need God's reliance.
Yeah,
for that.
so true. Yeah, if my problems are bigger than me, then I can't be the
Now
solution.
I need you, God. But if they're just me and you having an argument, well, like I can deal with Katie. God, I got it.
I can beat her in an argument, no problem. Yeah.
But if he's like, hey, actually, what it is your problem with Katie is a grander thing that Satan sees. Hey, you and your sister in Christ having this sort of back and forth is going to be detrimental not only to you two and your souls, but the people around you.
Yeah.
Then what a great thing for him to do. And if I only focus on dealing with that myself, and I don't allow God to work in that, and if I believe it's just me in this sort of physical realm, then I'm able to bring that responsibility onto myself. We shouldn't do that, and we talk about not doing that. But I think that putting it in that higher realm, I guess is the right word, I think allows us to really bring God into that a little bit better than we usually do naturally.
That's a great point. Yeah. Well, and I wonder too, because I see it still go. We tend to swing the pendulum too far in either direction, right? Like my leaning for sure is let's just not even talk about it at all. Let's avoid it. And like, I'm going to go about my business. There's also certainly the other end of the spectrum where people are giving Satan a little too much credit and like everything is demonic and, and like it suddenly I'm not taking responsibility for my own sin or I'm dramatizing things where God doesn't call for that. So I wonder, your thoughts on the idea that, the Bible's very clear. It says, stay on guard, be alert. Yeah. Your enemy, the devil, is prowling like he's looking for ways
ready to go
to make your life, not even necessarily your life worse. And sometimes it might feel like he's making your life better, but he's trying to make your relationship with God worse, distant, whatever. How do we do that, but not live in fear? Because God tells us many, many, many times to not be afraid. So what does it look like to be on guard but not scared?
Yeah. Well, I would say, just to your first point there, I do think that there's an overcorrection sometimes.
Sure.
And just to be clear, I think that a lot of people get more interested in what Satan's doing than what Jesus is. My whole ministry becomes about how Satan is coming against me instead of being like, hey, this is what God is doing.
Right.
And that moves into that part of fear. Like I can live in fear and say like, hey, there's nothing I can do against these things that Satan has brought against me, which by the way is true. That's the reliance on God piece of it. But also I can choose to continue to live my life in fear of those things, or I can trust that God has made me victorious. And it isn't anything that I have done, but it's that Jesus has completed the work. I think that this is sometimes where when we like to read the Bible as this like handbook for my life, and I pick and choose things about it that I really like, and then like those are the things that help me like get through circumstances of my life. But there's a grander plan in the Bible. There's a grander will that God has for the Bible. One of those things is the rescue mission that he sends Jesus on to come and rescue his creation and pull all creation back to himself. So this whole idea that there is a grander thing happening, there's principalities and powers of a dark realm above me, like all of this stuff. There is also a God who is at work in that realm, and he has been in work in that realm since the beginning of time.
Right.
And he has completed that work in Jesus, and he will continue to complete that work in Jesus when Jesus returns. This is why that grander story of the Bible is helpful for me to understand. It gets me out of, again, right in front of my face, where I don't live in fear, practically speaking, because I recognize that, like, yeah, we've won.
Right.
Like God has won.
It's over overall.
Right. And that my future, my future is strictly eternal life with Jesus. Like that's the reality. So I think sometimes our tendency is to maybe read about spiritual warfare and read about the devil as a prowling lion, right? And we take that reality as true. We're like, all right, I'm willing. All right, I've gotten there with that reality.
Sure.
But then I live only in that reality. And I don't live in the reality that Jesus is going to return. And that I get to share in his eternal glory for eternity because he's brought me in as a son or a daughter. Like that is also the reality. And so like now all of this stuff here that happens on earth, it can be difficult.
Sure.
But it doesn't have to be something that I live in fear of. And there's also a piece of this that that when I have the Spirit of God in me, that none of those forces can come against me in a very real and palpable way. Satan will do everything he can to distract you, to move you off course, but he can't get your soul. Jesus has it. That's the reality. And so I don't have to live in fear of that thing.
Yeah, that's good. And yeah, I think what you're getting at, and even I think what the Bible is getting at is more of an awareness than a terror. You know, just so you know.
Yes.
The enemy is real.
Yes.
He's working against you.
And why is that helpful for me practically?
Yeah, why is that
for me to know?
Yeah.
It's it's helpful for me practically because in my life now, like we were talking about, I don't think my problem is my boss at work. I understand that Satan is going to use every part of the circumstances of my life in order to draw me away from God. Now, to be clear, the problem, like your boss might be a problem.
Sure, yes.
But he is not your problem, or she is not your problem.
Yes.
Your problem is to deal with you. And so when you kind of come alive to this reality, it starts to help you deal with situations like that. It also starts to help you, I think that the Bible is clear, like as our responsibility grows, I think, and I believe as we take steps of faith, that target on our back is going to get bigger and bigger because I'm reaching out in faith. Yeah. And what that step of faith is, frankly, is vulnerability. And so the enemy will see that vulnerability and he'll say, that's where I'm going to attack. Just to share a personal story, actually, I was just thinking about this because of the giving message that Pastor Josh gave a couple weeks ago that I don't know when it was that he preached the last message on giving, but it was a while back. And my wife and I were trying to really kind of dial in our finances at that time. We're like, we got to be responsible. And I heard the message. I was convicted. I said, all right, God, I'm going to sacrificially give to you. I'm going to take this step of faith. I'm going to do this. And then I got, instead of getting like, some sort of like mysterious check in the mail.
Yes, surprise cash in my mailbox.
No, I got a bunch of bills and they were way, way bigger than I thought they would be. And it was like the next day, Katie, I was like, oh, this is great.
Awesome.
This is so great that I have to deal with this. And so my initial reaction obviously is like, oh, well, great, God, thanks for this. But then I thought about it some more. And I thought about this thing that we're talking about. Like, yes, of course, Satan's going to see me take a step of faith, be vulnerable with my finances, be open-handed with my finances. And then, of course, he's going to attack that. That's the exact thing he's going to attack.
Yeah.
And so whatever it is, like if you step in leadership at a church, if you, hey, I'm going to go out on a limb and start evangelizing to my neighbors, all of these things, Satan's not, he's going to attack you in those ways. So it's good to be alert to that. So when that happens, I don't get discouraged immediately after taking that step.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, you know what? I knew that this was going to happen.
This. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The Bible said that this would happen, so I know that it's going to happen.
And we're ready.
And I'm ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and trusting God in it. And that's actually part of the illustration that was used in the game this week. I was actually a little convicted by my own actions and watching myself back, because I think exactly what you're speaking to is like Pastor Josh made the parallel of, me watching from the sidelines representing God as people put all these obstacles my way. I couldn't have been less bothered because I knew there were no real stakes.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, I was sitting there watching them build a personal attack against me. And I was like, great, I'll get through it eventually. And then I know I'm going home. Yeah. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
If that doesn't speak to the way that we should see and the way definitely God sees any obstacles in our path, like he's not scared. And we really don't have to be either if we understand the actual stakes that are at hand, which is what you talked about in the beginning. Yeah. None of this is touching eternity.
No.
So, like, yeah, it might be inconvenient. No. It might be kind of annoying. I would love to get to the place in my own spiritual maturity where I can laugh at it the way that I laughed at it in those videos. To be like, hey, God's bigger than this. I know that I'll get through.
Yeah.
And in the end, I'm going home, and like there's only so much that can happen to me in the meantime.
I think more and more as I grow in my walk with God, I think God has been teaching me quite a bit, and I don't know much, but what I've learned over time is that God is less interested in helping me solve my problems and more about making those problems not as significant as I'm making them.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's just trying to turn the dial down a little bit on this world because it's so loud in your face and there's so many things that make life seem hard and difficult and confusing and frustrating. And God is saying, hey, there's another reality happening here, and I've won that reality. And so let's turn the dial down on the things that are really bothering you, that you can have that type of attitude. Like, that's exactly what Paul, by the way, is talking about when he talks about, hey, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
The whole book of Philippians,
Lovely verse. It's not talking, by the way, about hitting a walk-off homer in an elimination game, right? That's sorry, athletes out there.
Love you guys.
That's not what he's talking about. What he's talking about is contentment.
Yes.
Can I be content in every situation I find myself in?
And he's writing from prison.
Right. Exactly.
So,
exactly. And so, like, to that point, when I see Satan attacking me, it honestly, what it should be is an affirmation that I'm headed in the right way. Like, hey, of course he's going to attack right here. Yeah. And so I'm going to keep moving because I know what the right thing, but it should embolden me to continue to move forward because I know that he can't touch me. He can't get at my soul. Right. That I've already won through Christ. And so, like, I can be content in every situation I find myself in.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
can be happy as Satan builds obstacles in my way.
Yeah, so be it. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess, so that's also another verse that was referenced this weekend, James 1:2. Is that right? I think so.
Sure.
You can check my reference later, but I know that the verse is when all kinds of troubles come your way, you can count it as an opportunity for great joy.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we've been talking about, right? I mean, how do you, like, practically speaking, and maybe you have a story from your life or what, I don't know, whatever comes to your mind, but like, that's a great idea in theory. And everybody wants to be there. Yeah. Like, what are some steps to take to actually get to that point? Like, where do we begin?
Yeah. Well, I think we begin where we've been talking, which is that you come alive to that awareness, right? Like, I have to know that that's the case. Yeah. And I have to think about that as a reality. And that's why I keep using that word, by the way. This is something that I've, like, learned over time with this stuff, is that I talk about this stuff like reality, because that's what it is. Yeah. We like to think reality is all of the things that we do during our day. Like, the reality is, the reality is that there's a God of the universe, and he's much higher than us. So that's the first thing, I think. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is, am I willing to practically invite God into the things of my life that are difficult, but also the things in my life that I find easy. I think that we want God's presence to be with us in these things. That's the thing that's going to produce a great joy in me, right?
Yeah.
He says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? So he's being strengthened by Christ. And it's easy when things are going poorly in my life to reach out to God and be like, God, I need you.
Help, yeah.
Right, help, please. But when I think I got it under control, I'm really not interested in that. And so for me, and just tell you practically what it's looked like for me is that is how I begin my day. That I don't begin my day with a laundry list of requests. I make one. And it's, God, be with me today.
Yeah.
And I don't know what today's going to bring. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I need you to be with me. And then what that does is shift my focus from the start of the day to say, all right, and I don't always do this perfectly, to be clear, but it shifts my focus from the start of the day of like, I'm looking at every situation as though God is working because he is.
Yeah.
And so even in the small things, so when I'm thinking about it like that, then when something comes against me, I'm like, oh man, God's working.
Yeah.
Like
it's an
truly,
opportunity. Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the great joy comes from. Like, I don't think it's me thinking that my life is all right in spite of this. Like, I don't know how to say this in a right way, but like, it's not me just being like, things are bad and I'm happy. Like,
it's not a false.
Yes.
Yeah.
The joy comes from the fact that like, oh, God's working today, man. Like, hey, he's going to war and he's going to war for me on my behalf.
Yeah, he's got to do something with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I actually, just last week, this is just popping in my mind, but like, had the best opportunity to put this into action. It was like last Tuesday. So we have our staff meetings on Tuesdays. I run the staff meeting.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, I'll get up early. I'll get there early. I'll be prepared, try to be, good at my job. Do the right thing, whatever.
For just one time.
For one day a month, I try to be good at my job. So like I get my car, I'm ready to go, nice and early, have my coffee, ready to party. Car won't start.
Lovely.
Okay. No problem. This is what AAA exists for. I call AAA. I call my coworker. I'm like, hey, you might have to run a staff meeting. Here's everything that's planned. Whatever. No problem. Call AAA. They come eventually. They fix it eventually. I get to the staff meeting a little late. It was no big deal. All that goes down. I've got other meetings. In the midst of this meeting, I have, we'll call it a wardrobe malfunction that makes my pants unwearable.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So
pants, you'd rather not have the pants be the malfunction.
Yeah, and you need pants. I need pants.
Well, but yeah, sure.
I would say most.
Yeah.
People need pants. So I'm like, no problem. I have a break in my meetings. I'll get in my car, run home, get different pants, run on back in time, get in my car won't start.
Oh, no,
so now I'm in unwearable pants in my car that won't start. And truly, like, in that moment, I felt it. I felt myself absolutely not having a good attitude. And this is a small thing, and I know this is a small thing.
Right.
But it's the reality. I was like, I want to be pissed about this, which will then make me probably be unkind to my coworkers and maybe not so nice to this poor AAA man who, and, like, there are repercussions that will come of me having a bad attitude in this. And in that moment, truly, I had to check myself. And I think that's like our only responsibility in this. And God really does the rest, which is such a gift. But I felt it happening. And I was like, all right, God, help me. I was literally like, God, help me not be a jerk.
Yeah.
And what I recognized in that moment was how many things there were actually to be grateful for in that same story. Which was truly, if my car's going to die anywhere, at my own home and in the church parking lot, 100%. What a gift. I wasn't on the side of the road. There was no danger. Like, God kept me safe in that. And you know what? I had a random extra pair of pants in my trunk.
Unbelievable.
And it wasn't that big of a deal.
Jehovah-Jireh.
Jehovah-Jireh, baby. And I know, like, it's such a small example and it's silly, but, like, if we're not faithful in the small things, we're never going to be faithful in the big ones. And it really was, like, God used that in my life in that day to be like, hey, the things that you see as obstacles are just so little. Yeah. They're so little.
They're so small.
For me, and it turns out they are actually chances for you to recognize, just like you're saying, I'm in all of this.
Yes.
And a dead battery is an opportunity for you to maybe be loving to this AAA guy and to maybe show your coworkers that, like, a little inconvenience doesn't have to ruin your whole life and God is actually bigger.
100%. And Kitty, that is like, to me, that's the thing. It's like the whole thing. When big things happen in my life, I'm reaching out to God. That is at least as a believer, that's a natural inclination.
Yeah.
When things like that happen, I'm like, I want to be pissed. And I know that it's not a big deal, but I'm just aggravated today. And so I'll let a little bit of that out. And those little things are sometimes the hardest parts to invite God into.
Absolutely.
But when we do, like, this is what happens often with our worship team, like all the time, is like we'll have a practice or something and there'll be like, a slide doesn't work here, a light's malfunctioning here. There's like, we started late, like there's been all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and I appreciate this about the heart of our team, but I've tried to do this as their leader also, is that when that happens, and it's easier because this is in a church context, but when that happens, our response is like, hey, you know what? Maybe those things are happening because today or tonight that God wants to do something. And so the enemy's trying to do everything he can. And he knows, like he could blow up the church, but like it would almost give us more reason to worship, right? We would be like, we're still here.
It'd be too easy, it'd be too big.
It would be like traumatic, and we'd be like, hey, like look it up. But like when those little things happen, like, hey, can your tire be flat and like you still have a good attitude? Like that's sometimes more difficult, man. And so I think that's the whole thing. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, those little things, they were get us. The other half-ish of this message that we kind of got into was this idea of barrier removal, basically, that, we recognize Satan is doing his best in our lives, so be it. If we trust God through that, that doesn't really have to ruin our days, ruin our lives.
Yeah.
We also have a responsibility to the people that God has placed around us, that AAA guy that we just mentioned, my coworkers, whoever else, to be a light and to help.
Yeah.
We can't save anybody, but we can have conversations and point them toward Jesus in a way that helps remove the barriers that exist. I actually kind of wondered, because I think that can feel like a vague idea and a scary idea for a lot of people of like, well, I have to evangelize, like it's a scary word. It's a scary idea. And I think it's been abused in a lot of ways. So like the general concept of evangelism that we have may not be great in the United States, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
Because biblically, it's a wonderful idea.
Lovely, yeah.
I want, like, for you in your own life, because I know a little bit of your backstory. I didn't really know you well until you started coming to Harbor when we were just wee lads. Lads. I was going to say lads too. Even though I'm a lass technically.
You're
but
technically
that's all right.
a lass. But
we'll call us wee lads. Were there barriers for you that needed to be removed in order to feel like you wanted to get fully involved in a church again?
What a lovely question. I think that, mine are, so like I'm coming at it from the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I think when we talk about this, for the new believer, there's like, hey, we're going to really offend you with the gospel.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that on the way there, that you're not getting offended by one of us and our stupidness.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, I have been going to church my whole life, and my parents were very involved in ministry. My dad was on staff at a church. He was a Christian education pastor, did a lot of things for that church, and I grew up in it. In my life, I have experienced a lot of spiritual brokenness and a lot of church brokenness, and that, I think, is the barrier for me. It typically is the barrier for me. Like I see, let's say, an immense amount of religiosity. Like I have, we have to do this way. We have to read out of this version of the Bible, and we need to sing hymns, and we need to, that stuff turns me off, man.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge barrier. Another piece of it is the inauthenticity of spiritual people.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're going to say all of this. You're going to say this about this person or me or my family or whatever it is. And then I don't see you walk that out in your life.
Yeah.
And that is, so I would say, not to put myself in Jesus's shoes, but this is what Jesus's whole contention with the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin was.
Yes.
It was the hypocrisy of people.
Yeah.
So I think that's I think that and I think Harbor does a really good job of attempting at our best to find a middle where we speak to that person that's like, hey, I've never been to church before. And so like, it's gonna be weird if we have to stand up and sit down a million times. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone to a church where they make you welcome the person next to you.
That's so tough. Yeah.
It's just hard to receive, right? So like those types of things. And then I think we also do a good job on the other side to say like, hey, we don't have like specific parking spots for everybody here. Like, hey, you know what? If you serve, you're not going to park close to the church. You're actually going to park farther away because we're trying to reach new people. We're going to be authentic with the way that we live out. I've said many times, and I'll say it here, one of the things I appreciate about our pastor is not that he handles the word really well in the pulpit. He really does. But like, I know him and you know him personally. That's not fake.
It's not a show.
That's authentic and real.
Yeah.
And I think our church does a really good job of that. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does.
That's typically the barrier for me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. And I think many of our listeners will probably agree. I think that speaks to people with your kind of background and to the new believer. I think hypocrisy and made up rules are what's turning everyone off all the time. And it's exactly what Jesus was speaking to in the New Testament. I just read this morning in Isaiah where God is like, they speak to me, their words are empty. Yeah. Their words are empty. They're doing all these religious routines and it's rote and they don't mean any of it. Their hearts are not in it. Yeah. So you can say all the right things all you want, make all these rules. It doesn't mean a thing if your heart isn't after God. Right. Which leads me to, this wasn't even on purpose, look at us go.
Lovely segue.
We got some bonus episodes of the podcast coming up soon. Yeah. So as I said in the beginning, you are our worship director here. So I am. Talk us through what the people are going to be hearing in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I have been trying to figure out, like, how do I properly do my job as a worship director and I don't just make that about accomplishing, like, playing a bunch of songs, you know? It's an important part of what we do. Like, it is the longest thing, with the exception of the sermon, depending on the week, that we do as a church. So, like, why are we doing it? And obviously we know, like, we've talked about this as a church, that worship is it's something that's not just music, right? But we use music in our worship services on Sundays and on Thursday nights. So, like, why? Why are we doing that? Yeah. And why does it matter to me if I'm not a singer or a musician? And
why should I?
And so, like, I am not very smart, but there's a lot of people on our worship team that are very wise and very smart, and that I think do this really well. I think that the cool thing about being the worship director is that I am, like, I have my own little ecosystem within the church of all of these people that serve. And if you come to the church, you know, just on Sunday mornings, you may not know all of the things that happen behind the scenes, but I spend a lot of time with these people, preparing for worship and thinking about that intentionally, worshiping with each other, praying with each other, and actively trying to live this out as best we can. Yeah. And so I'm like, how do I bring that in some way to you know,
the general public? Yeah.
And I figured, you know, I'll get some of these real smart, wise people, and I'll ask them some good questions, and we'll talk about worship and why do we do it, and how do we get it wrong, and why do we use music, and you know, what does it look like to be happy in worship, and what does it look like to be sad, and all of these different types of things.
Yeah, right on. Well, so stay tuned, listeners, because those will be dropping in the next few weeks. We're looking forward to it. I'm excited to get to listen. I won't be there, so it'll be a fun surprise for me. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to be you.
Yeah. Oof. Good luck. Just kidding. Very small.
I'll never live up to it.
Small shoes, both literally and figuratively.
Yes. And apparently ripped pants. But other than that,
well, that was one time. We don't have to bring it back up. All right. So we'll have those dropping, I believe, next week. Yeah. 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 I'm looking at Bobby. He's not looking at me. Bobby says yes. Yeah.
He's shaking his head.
If our production team says yes and John Petty says yes, then I believe it. All right, cool. So we'll catch those next week. Yeah. And I'll be back next week for, I got some special guests. I have a couple coming.
Ooh, love that.
A twofer.
A double.
For next week's podcast. So thank you for being here, and we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
See ya.